So I had this new theory that I think is worth, well, who knows, about Lisa, who I talked to before 9/11, and then right after. Who's to say that somebody didn't threaten her that I don't want you talking to that Mexican boy because, she was white? Is it possible? 100%. 100%. Because she stopped wanting to talk to me eruptively, and there was really no argument. There really wasn't. And one of the reasons that it's suspicious is that I remember, it may not be connected. One day, I don't know how this has any connections to it, but early, when I first moved in here, the first 3 weeks, there was a white guy sitting in the couch. Not in the living room with some other lady. And I remember this guy named Tanner, who Bruce Myron knew really well. And I think he lived right across the street from Susie Kelly. And he came over, and I don't know if he came along with him or not, but there was a white guy that showed up, and he looked like a white supremacist. When you saw this guy, there was no doubt in your mind. You could tell by looking at him, this guy was racist. And the way that he came in, I never met this guy, I knew who he was. I was in my room, or in the DJ room, or I was in somewhere in the room, and somebody let him in the house, and they just walked right in and made themselves at home. I don't even know who. This is when I'm 16 years old, 17. I was 7. I had turned 17, and I know Jessica is the one that introduced me to her. They used to call her Crazy Jessica, but she worked for the post office, and she's the one that introduced me to her. And the way that I met Lisa was I was with Michael and Jessica one day. We were smoking weed, I think. We were smoking weed, or we were going to go pick up some weed or something like that. I don't know what reason. And we went over there. And when we went over there, it's how I saw Lisa. I had no idea. And I thought they were related. I thought Jessica and her were related. And that's how I got introduced to Lisa. And it was totally by coincidence. But it does make me think, because there were so many people coming to my house, that people that I never met, that they would have found out where I lived and checked me out. Because I remember with this one white guy, he looked a lot like this guy that showed up here earlier when the first 3 weeks I was here. This guy had a mullet, and you could tell he was racist, and he didn't look like he wanted to be my friend. He looked like he was just, and he asked me a few questions, you just live here by yourself? You just got a house? And he was thinking, and he was looking around the house oh, this is my house. I can do whatever I want. I can take advantage of this. So, who's to say? Who's to say that the only reason Lisa didn't want to call me was because somebody else threatened her, said, don't talk to that Mexican kid? Because I met her brother once or twice. I smoked weed with him and talked to him. And he didn't run me off, and he seemed very legitimate. He knew that I was talking to her, but that's not to say that somebody didn't threaten Lisa and say, don't talk to him. But I don't know. 9/11 just happened. My dad said that he spoke to the president, and, I wouldn't doubt that they would have tapped my phone and listened to the conversation with me and Lisa, which you would have seen how nice and polite and respectful I was talking to her. I was very, very, we were very good talkers toward one another. But, I thought I would talk to her, but who's to say? Somebody didn't tell, because Michael used to go, Rosser used to go over there. Who's to say that Jessica and Michael somehow trailed back to where I lived and found out where I lived? You never know, because when it's a white girl that pretty, 100% somebody will do, you'll get some racist shit. But yeah, there's no telling. There's no telling if someone threatened her and say don't talk to him or something bad happened to you or scared her and she didn't want to talk. Because it was very abruptly. There wasn't ever an argument. There really wasn't. There was no argument. It was just like she just stopped talking. Like she just didn't want to. Like, and I thought it was very weird. I was like, she never explained to me any people that were harassing her. But I know her mother wasn't in her life. That's for sure. Her mother was not even living in the house, and I don't know where her mother was. Her dad, checked me out and sort of gave me his approval. And, from what I felt with him, he wasn't mad. He just didn't want someone taking advantage of his daughter, which is totally acceptable. And I met him with her sitting on the couch. Like, we were all together, and that's what she told me. So, I thought it was important for me to say something to her, or, about this video. Never know if somebody could have threatened her because she wasn't actually living in the best of healthy lifestyle and conditions. That's for sure. She wasn't at all. And, she didn't have, to my understanding, her mother was nowhere in sight, and her dad, who knows if that wasn't her biological father either, but he looked like her biological father. But to my understanding, there was quite a bit of drugs that were going in and out of that house because I remember that. It kind of reminded me kind of like an acid house, like a white person's acid house, like kind of the maybe environment I thought. But she told me she really liked Mexicans. That's what she told me, and she always preferred Mexican guys. Who knows? Who knows what happened? I thought I saw, it was so weird. I thought I could have sworn I thought I saw her over at Lawrence Community Shelter. And, it looked just like her, and she looked like she gained a lot of weight. But, I don't know, she still, because I could tell because she had like a little bit of a lazy eye, or one of her eyes were kind of like crooked. But I didn't ever I saw past that. Who knows if somebody threatened her or did something to her. She was very smart, very nice. She was like a good girl. She was like a goody girl. She didn't smoke weed. She didn't do drugs. She didn't drink. She didn't do none of this. She didn't party. She didn't go to parties. But it is what it is, I'm sure whoever finds out can find out that, that was 30 years ago. It was 25 years ago. What good is that now? But maybe it goes to show, you never know who I was bringing inside my home because there was so much drugs. People wanted to not only feed me, but Michael was bringing all those people that were doing drugs. It was all Michael and Bruce, and it all just tailed over to my house. I didn't know anybody other than John Vasily, but every person I met was because they knew Michael Rossiter before. They were drug dealers or drug addicts or party people that he was bringing to. Anyway, I thought I'd make a video. I hope she's safe. Maybe she can tell you some information, what really happened. So if somebody did say something, don't talk to him again, or whatever. Or maybe someone else showed up. Maybe someone else, because it was weird. There was a Mexican guy that used to show up there a lot, and they used to work they used to be mechanics working on the car all the time. And he was a pretty good, sharp-looking Mexican guy, but who's to say that Mexican guy, maybe he was gay and he was trying to get me to hook up with her as well. I don't know. I don't think he was. I think that guy, because she told me he was sending her flowers and shit like that, and saying he was going to marry her. This guy was like 27, 25 years old, and she was 15, 16 years old. Nobody knows. I'm sure, without a doubt, if you talk to her, she can tell you, if somebody did, she can tell you inner circles, if somebody told her not to talk to me or say something. I was respected regardless, regardless, I was always very kind and respectful. Stop talking to her.